He kissed me on the forehead that morning like he always did. I was still in my pajamas, standing at the stove, flipping pancakes for our daughter. Caleb leaned down, smiled at me, and said, "See you tonight." His lips brushed against mine. Warm, familiar, and then he grabbed his laptop bag and walked out the front door. I didn't know that would be the last normal moment of my life. An hour later, I got a call from the police. A man on the other end, voice steady, said my husband had been in an accident. He didn't build up to it, didn't ease me into the news. He just said it, flat and final. Your husband, Caleb Morrow, was pronounced dead at the scene. I don't even remember dropping the phone. I remember my knees hitting the tile. I remember Lena's voice, confused and small, asking me why I was on the floor. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even cry. My body stopped working. The kitchen filled with smoke because I'd left the stove on. Burnt pancakes. That smell is still burned into my brain. I called Caleb's phone. It rang. I called again, straight to voicemail. I tried 5 times before I gave up. I couldn't breathe. I wanted it to be a mistake, a mix-up, someone else, not my Caleb. I called my mom. She was at our house within 20 minutes. I don't know how she got there so fast. She held my face in her hands and said, "Rhea, look at me. I'm here. You're not alone." But I was. I'd never felt more alone. Caleb wasn't supposed to die. He was supposed to pick up Lena from school, help her with her math homework, kiss me on the couch after she went to bed. We had leftover lasagna in the fridge for dinner. We had plans. We had a life. But that night, just as I was trying to figure out how to tell Lena her daddy wasn't coming home, something happened that I still can't explain. At exactly 8:30 p.m., I heard the front door open, footsteps, the sound of keys hitting the entryway table, and then his voice, clear, familiar, completely alive. "Dinner smells amazing." I froze, and when I turned around, Caleb was standing in the hallway, alive, smiling, real. I don't care if no one believes me. I know what I saw. I know what I felt. My husband died that morning, but that night, he came home. The morning started like any other, calm, simple, the kind of routine you stop noticing after years of doing it. Caleb was already halfway dressed when I woke up. He stood at the foot of our bed, buttoning his light blue shirt, one arm slipping into his jacket. He looked rushed, like always, but still managed to smile when he caught me watching him. "You're up early," he said, walking over and planting a quick kiss on my forehead. "I heard the alarm," I mumbled, still tucked under the blanket. "You hit snooze 3 times." I was savoring the last 10 minutes of peace. He laughed, grabbing his watch from the nightstand. "You should try it." He headed into the kitchen while I pulled myself together. Lena, our daughter, was already at the table, swinging her feet and reading one of her dinosaur books out loud to no one in particular. She was obsessed with them, could name more dinosaurs than most grown adults. "Mom, did you know the Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut?" she said proudly as I walked in. "I did not," I replied, kissing the top of her head. But now I'll never forget it. Caleb was making pancakes. He always did that on Wednesdays. It didn't matter how late he was running, he insisted on Wednesday pancakes. He said it grounded the week. I rolled my eyes every time, but secretly, I loved that about him. He moved around the kitchen like it was a dance. Batter in one bowl, spatula in hand, pan sizzling. He hummed while he worked. He couldn't sing to save his life, but he had this way of humming that always made the house feel warm. Lena started asking him about something for school, and they slipped into a back and forth that I barely listened to. I was pouring coffee, scrolling my phone, thinking about lesson plans and parent-teacher conferences. Normal life, everyday thoughts. Caleb flipped a pancake, turned to me and said, "Did you sign the field trip form?" "I left it on the counter for you last night," I replied. "You forgot, again." He gave me this sheepish look that I knew meant I was right, and he knew it. I picked up the form and handed it to him. "Last minute as always," I said. "Spontaneity builds character. Lateness gets you called by the principal." He laughed, signed it, and slid the plate of pancakes in front of Lena. I watched them for a second. My husband and our daughter, eating, laughing, filling the kitchen with the sound of love. I remember thinking how lucky I was. Not in some grand, dramatic way. Just a quiet awareness that this life was good. Vivian, my mom, called right before Caleb left. She does that sometimes. Morning check-ins she pretends are about Lena, but I know she's really calling to make sure I haven't forgotten to breathe. She's always been a little overbearing, but I appreciate it more now that I'm a mom myself. Morning, baby, you up? I've got coffee in hand and pancakes on the stove. We're up. Good. I'm stopping by later to drop off those books for Lena. You need anything? Nope, we're good. Love you. Don't forget to eat. I won't. Caleb finished packing his bag and kissed Lena on the forehead. Then he turned to me. I was standing near the sink, sipping coffee, watching him. He walked over, leaned down, and kissed me again. A little slower this time. A little longer. See you tonight, he said. I remember the way he said it. Calm, casual. No hesitation. Just another day. Just another goodbye. I nodded, told him to drive safe, and watched him walk out the door. The sun was already up. Birds chirped outside the window. It was supposed to rain later, but the sky was still clear. I stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door. Something about the silence after he left felt heavier than usual, but I shook it off. Just nerves, probably, or hormones, or caffeine. I checked my phone. It was 7:51 a.m. I texted him, "Drive safe, love you." He responded instantly with a red heart emoji. That was the last message I ever got from him. After he left, the day went on like normal. I helped Lena pack her backpack. She wore her favorite purple hoodie with glittery letters across the front. We talked about her upcoming spelling test. We argued for a minute about whether she could take her stuffed dinosaur to school. She said it helped her think better. I said it stayed home. She pouted and left it on the couch. Vivian showed up early because, of course, she did. She picked Lena up, kissed me on the cheek, and reminded me to eat again. I waved them off and turned back to clean the kitchen. Coffee half drunk. Pancake batter still in the bowl. That was 8:10 a.m. I was rinsing a plate when the phone rang. I had no idea that everything was about to change. The phone rang at 8:12 a.m. I still remember the number. It started with 312, which meant downtown. I figured it was someone from Caleb's office, maybe something about his project deadline. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and answered with my usual half-distracted voice. Hello? The man on the other end didn't ask if it was me. He didn't ease into the conversation. He spoke like someone reading from a terrible, necessary script. Is this Mrs. Rhea Morrow? I hesitated. Something in his tone dropped a weight in my stomach. Yes, I said slowly. I'm Officer Michael Landry with the Illinois State Police. I'm calling about your husband, Caleb Morrow. I stood still. My heart started racing, but I kept my voice calm. What happened? There was a collision on Route 14 at approximately 7:58 a.m. A semi-truck lost control in the rain and hit a sedan matching your husband's vehicle registration. I'm very sorry to tell you this, ma'am, but your husband was pronounced dead at the scene. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words didn't make sense. Dead? What was he talking about? Caleb had just walked out the door. I had just seen him. He had texted me after 8. You're wrong, I said, my voice barely audible. You're wrong. He just left for work. That can't be right. I'm truly sorry, the officer said again, gentler this time. His wallet, his phone, and his ID were found at the scene. We've confirmed it through your vehicle records and his driver's license. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a sharp crack. My body gave out before my brain could catch up. My knees buckled and I hit the tile hard. The air vanished from my chest. All I could do was gasp and shake. Lena was still home. She was brushing her teeth in the bathroom. She heard me hit the floor and came running. Mom, what happened? Are you okay? I couldn't speak. I couldn't tell her. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I felt her tiny hands on my arms trying to shake me, trying to understand. I crawled to the phone and redialed Caleb's number. It rang. Once. Twice. Voicemail. I called again. And again. I think I called 5 times. I don't remember if I left a message. I called my mother next. She answered on the first ring. Rhea! What's wrong? I was screaming. I didn't even realize it. Screaming into the phone, into the walls, into nothing. I couldn't find real words. My voice cracked, high and raw. Mom, Caleb, he's dead. They said he's dead. They said he died. I could hear the engine start in the background. She didn't ask anything else. She just said, I'm coming. She got there in under 20 minutes. I was still on the floor when she arrived. Lena was crying in the corner, hugging her knees, not understanding what was happening. My mom threw her arms around me, her face pale, trying to get answers. "Rhea, look at me. Talk to me. What happened?" I handed her my phone. She looked at the call log, then stepped into the other room. She returned a few minutes later, silent. Her eyes told me she had heard the same thing. That's when everything blurred. Family started calling. Word spread faster than I could think. My sister called crying. Caleb's mom called and begged for information. I couldn't give them anything except what the officer said. Vivian took over the calls. I just sat there, shaking, cold, despite the summer heat. At 11:30 a.m., a detective came to the door. She handed me a packet of information. She was kind, but I barely heard her. I signed something. I nodded when she explained what to expect next. Transport of the body, autopsy, personal effects. She handed me Caleb's wedding ring in a small, clear bag. I stared at it like it belonged to someone else. I asked if I could see him. She said not yet. The medical examiner had to finish first. At 1:45 p.m., Lena asked me again where her dad was. I had no answer. I told her he got hurt. I said he wouldn't be home today. I told her he loved her very much. That's all I could manage. By 3 p.m., the house was full. My brother came in from the city. My aunt showed up with casseroles. People brought flowers. Our pastor stopped by. Everyone moved around me like I wasn't there, their faces sad and careful, like I might break apart if they breathed too hard. I stayed on the couch, Caleb's ring still clutched in my hand. I hadn't changed clothes. I hadn't eaten. I don't even think I blinked for an hour. At 4:07 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Caleb's number. I stared at it. My mother grabbed it from me and answered. There was nothing on the other end, just silence. Then the call dropped. She looked at me, spooked. "That was probably some kind of delay," she said quickly. "Maybe someone found his phone. Maybe it called by accident." But her voice didn't sound sure. I got up slowly and walked to the kitchen. I opened the fridge and took out the lasagna I had made the night before, Caleb's favorite. I put it in the oven. I had no idea why. I just did it. My hands needed something to do. My heart needed something to hold on to. Dinner would be ready by 8:30. I didn't eat the lasagna. I couldn't even taste the air, let alone food. I just stood in the kitchen, watching it bubble behind the glass, like dinner was still happening, like the world hadn't cracked open that morning. The house had quieted. The visitors left around 6. Vivian stayed, of course. She sat in the living room with her Bible on her lap, flipping pages without reading them. Lena was in her room, drawing with crayons, trying to be brave in her own quiet way. I hadn't told her the truth yet. I couldn't do it. Not when I wasn't sure what was real myself. I should have been planning a funeral. Instead, I was watching the oven timer. I hadn't cried in hours, not because I didn't feel it, but because the grief had stretched itself so thin, it was turning into something else, something jagged and buzzing and strange. At 7:15, I walked down the hallway to Caleb's closet. His blue flannel shirt was still hanging on the end of the rack, the one he wore when we went to the orchard last fall. I took it off the hanger and held it to my face. It still smelled like his cologne, earthy, warm, a little citrus. I walked back to the kitchen wearing it. Vivian looked up from the couch. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't say anything. At 7:45, I set the table. 3 plates, forks, knives, napkins. I didn't hesitate. I set Caleb's place exactly where it always went, end of the table, next to the window. I pulled out his chair. I filled his glass with water. Vivian stood up slowly. "Rhea," she said carefully, "what are you doing?" "I'm setting dinner," I answered. Her voice sharpened. "You know he's gone. You need to sit down, baby. Rest. I don't feel like resting." She looked at the table, then back at me. "You're scaring me." I didn't respond. I just walked to the oven, took out the lasagna, and set it on the stovetop. The scent filled the kitchen. Rich, familiar. Caleb's favorite. He always asked for seconds. He always said I made it better than his mom, then winked like he was risking something dangerous. At 8:05, I went to check on Lena. She was lying in bed, awake, her arms wrapped around her stuffed dinosaur. "Daddy's not home," she said softly. I sat on the edge of the bed and tucked a blanket around her. "He might be late," I said, "but he loves you so much. He always comes back to us. You know that, right?" She nodded. "Can I come eat with you?" "Of course." I led her back to the kitchen, sat her down, and fixed her a small plate. Vivian refused to touch hers. She watched me with the kind of silence only a mother can wield, worried, guarded, praying under her breath. I sat down across from Caleb's empty chair. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just waited. The clock on the wall ticked louder than I remembered. At 8:20, the lights flickered. Vivian sat up straighter. Lena didn't notice. She was talking to her stuffed animal about whether dinosaurs like cheese. At 8:25, I smelled something strange. Not the lasagna, something else. Motor oil and rain. It hit me fast, like someone opened a window in my chest. The same scent Caleb brought in with him after driving in the rain. That scent had no reason to be there. At 8:28, Vivian stood up. "You need to stop this now," she said. "You're inviting something into this house that doesn't belong here." "I didn't invite anything," I said. "I just made dinner." She moved toward the door. "I'm staying at my place tonight. I'll come back in the morning. This doesn't feel right." I didn't stop her. She grabbed her purse and walked out, muttering a prayer as she stepped onto the porch. Lena looked up. "Where's Grandma going?" "She's tired," I said. "Eat your peas." At exactly 8:30, the front door opened. Not slammed, not creaked, opened. The way it always did when Caleb forgot to twist the handle the whole way. I stood up. Lena looked past me and smiled. "Daddy." I turned around. Caleb was standing in the doorway, water dripping from his jacket. His shoes were muddy. His hair was damp. He looked tired but alive. My legs went weak, but I didn't fall. I held onto the chair. He smiled at me, that same familiar smile. "Dinner smells amazing." I couldn't speak. My hands trembled. I felt the edge of the table pressing into my hip. He walked in, dropped his bag by the door like always, and started unzipping his jacket. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane. There was some kind of wreck on Route 14. I had to turn around." I couldn't breathe. He looked at me, confused. "Rhea, what's wrong?" Lena ran into his arms. He scooped her up, kissed her cheek, laughed. I didn't move. I just stared at him. My husband had died that morning. I had signed the papers. I had held his wedding ring in my hand. And yet, he was standing in my kitchen, warm and whole, asking what was for dinner. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I stood there, frozen, watching Caleb as if my eyes couldn't decide whether to believe him. He was real. His footsteps echoed across the hardwood. He smelled like wet pavement and soap. His hair was damp, and a drop of water rolled down his temple and landed on the floor. Lena clung to his neck, babbling about her drawing and how Grandma left early. He smiled, nodded, kissed the top of her head like nothing had happened, like he hadn't died 10 hours ago. He turned to me, frowning now. "Rhea, are you okay? You look pale." I stepped backward, slowly, as if my own body didn't trust what it was seeing. My heart raced so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. I reached for the table, needing something solid to hold on to. "You died this morning," I whispered. His head tilted slightly. "What?" "You died. On Route 14. The police called me. I saw the report. I have your ring. They gave me your wedding ring." He looked down at his hand, and the ring was still there. I blinked, feeling dizzy. "You were dead, Caleb," I said again, louder this time. "They said a truck hit you. They said it wasn't survivable. They told me you were gone." He stepped forward, one hand raised like he was trying to calm me. "I wasn't even on Route 14, he said. "I took Belmont instead. There was an accident, yeah, but I saw it up ahead and turned off before I got near it. I've been in the office all day." "No, you haven't. I called your phone. I talked to the police. A detective came to the house. She handed me paperwork. She gave me your ring." "Rhea, I don't understand what you're saying. Look at me. I'm fine. I've been working all day. I even sent you a message before lunch, but I figured you were busy." "I didn't get anything," I said, grabbing my phone. I opened our text thread. The last message was the heart emoji he sent at 7:51 a.m. Nothing after that. "Look," I said, holding the phone out. "That's it. Nothing came in." He pulled out his own phone and tapped the screen. "It says I sent you a text at 1:14. Then again, around 5, just saying I was leaving late." "I never got those," I said. "They don't exist on my phone. I called you 5 times this morning. I left a voicemail." He scrolled through his recent calls and shook his head. No missed calls, no voicemails, nothing. We stood in the kitchen, staring at each other like strangers. The tension wrapped itself tight around the room. The smell of lasagna still hung in the air, but everything else felt foreign. Tilted. Office Lena tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, why is Mommy crying?" He crouched down to hug her again. "She's just surprised, baby girl. It's okay." He looked up at me, his expression softer now. "Come sit down, Rhea, please. Let's eat and talk." I sat, not because I was calm, but because my legs were trembling. I watched him fill a plate, scoop lasagna onto it, pour a glass of water. He was left-handed. He always used the green-handled spoon. He did now, too. "Do you remember what you wore this morning?" I asked, my voice still shaking. He looked down at his shirt. "This." "I was told you were wearing a blue button-up. I wore this to work. Vivian got me this jacket for Christmas, remember?" I nodded. She had. I stared at it now, soaked around the shoulders from the rain. Vivian had seen the report too. She'd heard the call. She held me as I broke down. None of this made sense. "What about your car?" I asked. "They said it was totaled." He frowned. "It's in the garage. I parked it 20 minutes ago." I stood up and walked to the garage door. My hand shook as I opened it. His car sat exactly where it always did. Not a scratch on it, not a dent. I walked around it twice, touched the hood. Still warm. I went back inside. "The report had your license number. They described your scar, the one on your wrist from when you fell off your bike as a kid." He held up his hand. The scar was there. "I don't have answers," he said, "but I'm here. I'm alive. That has to mean something." "You were gone," I whispered again, "and yet I'm here, with you, with Lena, sitting down for dinner like it's any other Wednesday." We both sat in silence. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed. "You added extra garlic," he said. "Just how I like it." I stared at him, trying to find something, some clue, some flaw in his movements or voice. But everything about him was real. Lena started talking about school again. Caleb listened. He reached across the table and touched my hand. His fingers were warm. I looked down at his plate. Steam curled into the air. I had prepared dinner for a dead man, but somehow, impossibly, he was sitting in front of me, eating like he'd never left. I didn't understand how, but I wasn't ready to let him go again. That night, after dinner, I sat on the edge of the bathtub while Caleb gave Lena her bath like he always did on Wednesdays. She splashed and laughed, soaking the floor. He wrapped her in a towel and carried her down the hallway to her room. She asked for 2 bedtime stories. He read them both. His voice was steady and low, soft in the way that always made her eyelids grow heavy. I watched from the doorway. I didn't interrupt. I didn't ask him more questions. I just watched. He kissed her forehead, turned off the lamp, and closed her door halfway like she liked it. When he turned toward me, his expression changed. He could see it all over my face. The shock hadn't worn off. The fear hadn't settled. It just kept spinning inside me. We walked back to our bedroom without saying a word. I closed the door behind us. I turned to him. "Do you really not remember anything? No crash? No impact?" He sat on the bed and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I remember waking up. I remember kissing you goodbye. I remember taking Belmont instead of Route 14 because I saw flashing lights up ahead. There was a police blockade. That's it." I sat across from him. I signed papers. I spoke to officers. They brought me your wedding ring in a plastic bag. He looked down at his hand. The ring was still there. He twisted it once, like he was trying to convince himself it was real. "I can't explain it," he said. "But I never felt gone. I was never unconscious. I never blacked out. My day went on like any other." I couldn't argue. I had no facts left to throw at him. I had witnessed a death, processed a loss, and now sat next to the same man I believed I'd lost forever. My brain was chasing logic, but my heart had already made a decision. I wrapped my arms around him and pulled him close. "I don't care how it happened," I whispered. "I just want you here." We lay in bed that night, pressed close together. I didn't sleep. I watched him breathe. I felt his chest rise and fall. Every time I blinked, I half expected him to disappear. By morning, he was still there. The next few days were full of questions. I contacted the detective. The precinct had no record of a fatal crash involving Caleb Morrow. They said no one by the name of Officer Michael Landry worked there. There was no paperwork, no badge number, no visit logged to my address. The coroner's office had no information under his name. I checked the emergency room records. Nothing. I told Vivian. She didn't want to believe it. She thought I had dreamed it. Then I showed her the ring they gave me, still sealed in a bag, identical to the one Caleb still wore on his hand. She sat down and didn't speak for a full minute. Then she crossed herself and said, "You were given a second chance. Don't waste it." I didn't waste it. The fear stayed for a while. I'd wake up in the middle of the night just to check if he was still breathing. I flinched every time he left the house. I hugged him longer than necessary. Every single morning, I stopped saying goodbye. I started saying, "Come home safe." We didn't tell many people what happened. When they asked why the funeral plans were canceled, we said there was a mistake. Some people believed us, some didn't. I stopped trying to explain. Sometimes Lena brings it up. She'll say things like, "Remember when Daddy was gone that day and came back during lasagna night?" We just nod. She doesn't carry the fear I did. To her, he came back. That's enough. Eventually, I stopped looking for answers. Not because I stopped caring, but because the truth didn't seem to live in the facts. It lived in the moment when the front door opened and he stood there alive. It lived in the way his voice sounded when he said my name. It lived in the smell of lasagna filling the kitchen while the impossible became real. I used to want closure. Now I just want more time. We still have Wednesday pancakes. Caleb still hums while he flips them. Lena still tells dinosaur facts at the table. We still fight over field trip forms and bedtime routines. Nothing is perfect, but it's ours. I don't know what happened that day. Maybe time bent in a way science can't explain. Maybe fate changed its mind. Maybe someone somewhere gave me another shot. All I know is I buried my husband in my heart that morning. I mourned him. I begged the sky to return him, and then, somehow, it did. I don't expect anyone to fully understand what happened. Honestly, I'm not sure I ever will. But I'm holding on to what matters. My husband came home. My family is whole again, and that's enough for me. If this story touched you, share it with someone you care about. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you've ever experienced something you couldn't explain. And if you want more real, emotional stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening.